Hello, and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a podcast where each episode we take a look at some Dungeons & Dragons and how we can use it in our role-playing campaigns. Ooh. We are back on our trend away from our travels. And
yes. We travelled, and now we're back to actually looking at real books, she says in quotation marks.
Exactly, yeah. We did a bit of Vecna last week. We were talking about Vecna, the dossier, and the sort of introductory module thing that they're doing on D&D Beyond these days.
Yeah, the free adventures stuff, we had a bit of a chat about how free stuff's always good, but also what kind of free stuff's all that stuff. So I thought it was very fruitful, and it got me very excited for Vecna, Eve of Ruin. And I'm just going to show you on camera. Here's my alt cover. How shiny!
So gorgeous.
It's honestly, I know I say it every time, and I appreciate this is an audio podcast, but my God, artists need to be paid. I know they will, and it's just
wizards. If you could remember that would be good. And stop. I'm borderline let's just do the GM's Book Club at this moment in time.
I know.
I'm not happy with their use of. Oh, come on, be an AI artist for us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Richard.
so since we've recorded, there's been sort of outcry about job postings at both Hasbro and Wizards asking for, was it AI director or something like that?
Yeah.
So to investigate, in quotation marks, the use of AI.
Yeah.
When job stuff like that is not as transparent, because job stuff never is.
No.
Instantly people are going, it's going to be AI in video games, it's going to be AI in
everything. Yeah, it's a shit show. And to be honest, it's been an absolute shit show in the Warhammer community, because there has been one of the world's worst interviews with a guy who used AI art in a backdrop for one of his Warhammer models. And these people interviewed it, and it was just I don't want to go. I've talked about it enough, but the guy really is very self-aware of what he's talking about, calling anyone who said AI art is terrible a virgin. He said that's what because they're obviously internet virgins, and it's not a big deal. I don't really believe this stealing thing. And then there were people on it going yeah, but it's just when artists they go on the internet and look at photos, and then they're just inspiration from those photos. So how's it any different? And you're because I stopped listening to this podcast for actually a few episodes now after they wouldn't take a position on basically Games Workshop allowing characters to be women. And I was like, it's a very simple question of, it's fine, get over it, it's a good thing. And they were umming and ahhing for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes of someone not taking a position on something which should be easy and sort of pandering to people who are basically not very nice people on the internet, I was like, well, I'm not watching this anymore. And then this AI thing happened. I was like, I better watch this then. And it was, to coin the phrase, shit show.
So I guess we're saying that we appreciate it is quite a turbulent time. No. It's quite a stormy time, as usual. It seems like business as usual at Warhammer and Wizard of the Coast.
Yeah, both spaces are being invaded by AI very quickly, and it's kind of scary.
We very much appreciate that. Again, we're just trying to do the stuff we love and just sort of enjoy it. But yeah, we are appreciative that there's a lot more at stake, and we're not happy with it either.
Yeah, it's just seeing friends directly being affected by it on a daily basis. It's just there and very immediate. Anyway, I know, sorry, I'm getting on a downer. Let's go upwards, maybe, for Vecna.
Well, I don't know. I think you've got the vibes of Vecna, Eve of Ruin, to be honest with you. For those people who've been living under a rock, per se, what is Vecna, Eve of Ruin, then? If you want to do a quick summary of what it is.
I'd say it's D&D, the greatest hits, but you realise that their later work is pretty shit.
What a critique right at the top.
Sorry, that was a bit mean. I'm in a spicy mood.
Spicy mood, yes.
But I think it is a bit side A of this greatest hits is pretty good, the greatest hits bit, but the new material they're doing at the end of the show, I'm not that interested in. It's like going to a concert and you've got your band and they're playing all the good tracks, and then they go, now we're going to play our new song from our new album. You're like, oh, bugger off. This is where we've gone experimental, but not even in a good way. We've gone boringer.
Yes, this is the first 50th adventure we've had out this year, I believe. And it's basically Wizards is sort of maybe inspired weirdly by Marvel's Endgame, which I realise has been out for a long time, but the idea of you are on a great epic adventure, level 10 plus, all the way up to level 20, which
is love that,
obviously. And the idea is that your band of heroes gets caught up with Vecna's sort of major plans to come and rewrite the universe in his own image. And in order to stop him, you have been charged with finding the Rod of Seven Parts, Well, let's just say there's going to be massive spoilers for this adventure.
Oh, yeah, you have to spoil it in order to say it, so warnings.
Absolute warning at the top. But eventually, obviously, you come face to face with Vecna himself as he's preparing this ritual and then have to stop him.
Yeah, you eventually become face to face with Vecna for about, a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end.
Yes.
And then, whatever.
I will say, so that's one of the biggest criticisms I've seen of this module is that Vecna doesn't really show up in it until the end.
He didn't even need to be Vecna for most of this. You're kind of like...
I agree, yeah. I guess in my head what they did was like, it's the 50th anniversary, who's the greatest villain of all time that we've always seen? Vecna, right. But the problem is with Vecna, as we've seen with Critical Role, that's where I first, because obviously we talked about it last week, was a character in Critical Role, and Stranger Things obviously has been in D&D for the longest time, but it sort of, for me, rose to sort of public consciousness in those things. When the Critical Role lot were fighting Vecna, the first time, they couldn't.
Yeah.
It genuinely felt like a TPK was about to happen live on stream, and it was so exciting and stuff like that. So it makes sense to me that he wouldn't be there all the time as a villain going back and forth.
Okay, I'm getting animated now.
Yeah.
Strahd turns up all the time.
All the time.
To taunt people, right? Strahd is freaking hard to beat. He's not easy. He's an absolute vampire lord who runs and is part of and is an extension of the realm in which he's in. Mm-hmm. But you fuck with the characters by bringing him up. He rides with the party for a bit, and I know some people who are playing this game and he's been with the party for 8 sessions and they left him alone in the last session with what's her face? I've forgotten her name. Irina.
Oh,
they're like, this guy seems nice. He'll look after her and take her away. They're just about to find out what's happened.
Oh my god!
I know, it's quite hilarious. The guy who's running it is I won't say his name in case players are listening because they might be, but they're like, oh yeah, this is a load of fun. This guy's really got things going for him, and he's just absolutely taunting them. And that's the thing. I was expecting after every one of these, or at least after every 2 of these like big moments, for him to turn up and taunt you. Even the Dragonlance one we did, there's an attack by the dragon army. There's a little mini thing going on here. You're constantly being made aware of like the things, but really you're like some dude's off in a basement farting about with magics somewhere. Somehow we know this is happening. Don't worry. We know this is happening, even though you can't see any expression of it anywhere apart from the fact that you caught some cultists farting about 5 years ago in another basement.
Yeah.
I was expecting like, we're seeing the dead rise from the land again. We're seeing like energies warping and reality shifting. And you've got to, I was expecting like mechanics, like slowly as you're getting on and on and on, reality is being drained. And therefore you've got to deal with effects that like environmental effects or something like that. But no, he's just in his basement and you've got to hurry up before he does something in his basement.
I agree. I think having him appear after every chapter, so there's just to clarify, there's like 11 chapters or 11 sort of parts to the story. We've got a bestiary, we've got appendixes, etc. And he only sort of turns up in the last one, really. And as you said, the first one is where they sort of get their connection with Vecna, when you do, as we sort of described a bit last week. Last week we talked about the Eldritch Eye sort of introduction adventure, and then the first chapter kind of repeats it a little bit. It's a little bit more in depth of a similar adventure, also in a tomb, in a dungeon, that sort of thing. And that's where you get your connection with Vecna again. It seems like, I don't know actually if I would run that first adventure with the same characters, that intro adventure. But I guess it's sort of maybe insinuating that you should every so often have a bad dream about what Vecna is doing and do a role play moment. I think that's what it's trying to do, but I agree. We need something like little...
There's no ticking clock. There's no ticking clock. You're so like, I could be doing this over a year, a month, and there's nothing forcing me to like, I never feel like I'm in this book when I was reading it. Like, what's the impetus here? There's no impetus. Like, we've got to get this thing because he's up to something. He's definitely up to something. You're like, but I can't see any manifestation of that. I've just got to take you at your word.
Yeah.
And I think if I was going to run this, I'd be adding things in that, like, the world's getting worse. It's getting...
Yes, I think so too.
We're losing the portals and sigil are closing off to different lands. Or when you go through certain realms, they're already being turned to Vecna's thing. And you've got refugees coming from all these different planes into sigil. And they're trying to deal with all these people who are escaping the evil. And soon there will be no doors left. And the Lady of Pain is, and something just to keep because otherwise you're like, well, you know what? I can't be bothered with going to get that one in Eberron now. Let's go have a jaunt in Sigil and have a little break, you know?
Yeah, it makes me think that, like, the only impetus of, like, going quickly is through the Wizards free, you know? And even then, only one of them, which, again, we'll spoil in a second, is trying to push you to go.
And I think the relationship of the Wizard 3, because they wanted to do this 50th anniversary, they thought we have to do a Lustriel and a Tasha. Like, they're like, okay, we've got to get them in because they're big names, along with Mordenkainen. And I think it comes across and it's obvious the whole way through that they've realised there's a big problem here because those two are ridiculously superpowered, amazing wizards, right? And mages. And it's like, so we're going to get a bunch of level 10 people to go on a series of quests and we're just going to hang out.
We're not going to go anywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it does feel a bit like, why aren't they coming with you, for example?
And you would just so be like that. Like, Tasha, you're like a near god, like a fey being, and have spells named after you. Mordenkainen, you were literally the book, okay? Could you just hop along with us and make this easy? Because if it was that important,
they would go.
They would be like, oh, we'll have a cup of tea and you do the work, you know? I'm sorry, I'm really getting spicy on this.
They want you to be the heroes, don't they?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a version of Tasha that's not the one in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight that ends up there. So that's one thing I would say right there. So maybe she's a bit more volatile, perhaps. One thing I do quite like is that you could really play on the sort of like the relationships between the three of them, and that could be quite interesting. But it feels like one of them should come with you, but maybe, I don't know, some magic is preventing the idea of this failed wish spell, which is the reason that you're sort of brought into this story. Maybe they're like, well, you must be the only ones, and we can't, for whatever reason, can't go to these places because they're sealed off in some way. Because it doesn't say why Mordekainen can't go there to these places.
I think they could solve both issues really quickly. You deal with it. We've got to be doing this. We are dealing with Vecna right now, and then you join us for the fight. Or we're holding the fort. We're trying to hold back the magic. We're doing this. We're completely contained with this magical effect to try and nullify it. We've only got so long. And I would have them die off. I would literally be like, we're maintaining this power, and I'd get to like 3 in, and I'd say Tasha's looking weak, and you can see that she's like drawing all of her life energy into us. It's been days that they've been constantly maintaining this circle. It's keeping his power at bay. And then one of them passes out and is gone. And they're like, we can only do it for so much longer. That gives you your impetus or something like that, you know, and you can literally see some physical manifestation. That's why they can't go with you. And that gives you your race. We can't have Tasha and Asturiel and Mordenkainen dead, because if they die, then no one's holding the gate.
Yep. It's we're gonna have Vecna come through eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What happens is obviously you get brought into you get brought to Sigil into Illustriel's sort of home after this failed wish spell by the three of them.
Yeah.
And it's decided, because you are the answer to this wish spell, even though it has failed, that you are going to be sent off and find the rod of 7 pieces, which Mordekainen sort of sets you off on the path, but then you can only find the next piece of the rod by getting the first piece of rod. It's a fetch quest, a massive long fetch quest. And each of the individual sort of places that you go, like, again, it is, like you said before, greatest hits, essentially. And for the most of them, I do enjoy them. I find them quite interesting, and they are different. But then, obviously, at the end, let's just spoil it right now, you are betrayed, because Mordekainen is not who Mordekainen is. Mordekainen is, in fact, Cass the Destroyer, who, again, if you were playing this as voice of reason, like completely without any context at all, I don't think you would know who the heck Cass is unless the DM was actually dropping lots of hints about who they were, etc. Because there's a lot of very cool backstory, very interesting. I would like have like flashes of like memories and stuff like that maybe that you foresee and stuff like that. And again, having that sort of like, I'm coming for you, Vecna, and no Cass, and having that sort of back and forth.
I'd had it in the opening adventure as well, like in the cultist lair, having like a tableau or something like that of Cass and his betrayal, and like the sword being cast out, and I'd have the sword there, because I think that would be quite fun.
That's the other thing that I think is really missing from this adventure. There's no sword, apparently, like you could also include in, but there's no eye and there's no hand of Vecna. It feels like that's a massive, I don't know, maybe it's a bit too much perhaps, but I think like at least find one of those special items that makes it, like, I think the sword out of all of them, but you think, God, you can just go, oh, there's an eye here. Like, and then And then Cass, as eventually reveals themselves, has a big off-screen fight with Tasha and Illustrial, takes the rod to then release Miska, the spider wolf demon, who is terrifying. And then with all those sort of forces, then go off and sort of defeat Vecna and take over the ritual for themselves. Don't get me wrong. As soon as I read that Mordenkainen was not Mordenkainen, I was very excited. I love anything like betrayal like that. I will say the way the sort of the crown that makes you impervious to ever finding it out, because we know what D&D players are like. They're going to be like, that was a really weird thing you just said. Insight check. A 30, and you're like, oh, bollocks. They're going to find out that it's... in my head, I don't mind that too much. I think Mordenkainen needs to be a bit shifty, and you're like, it's just Mordenkainen.
He's a bit shifty.
He is a bit shifty.
He hangs out in Avernus. That's where he has his main base. You're like, well, that's cool, I guess.
But also, I do like how you could tie it into the Mordenkainen we do see in Curse of Strahd, because there's a version of Mordenkainen trapped there. So maybe that, again, should you go to Barovia, because you do go in one of the things, maybe you're like, wait, wasn't that Mordenkainen? Like, and then be like, remember us? Why are you here? And then it's like maybe having that sort of reveal as well.
That would be cool.
Yeah, what did you make of the different locations we could go to getting this Rod of Seven Parts?
This is the bit that I thought that was good. This is the bit that I enjoyed. I thought, again, it's great. It's actually like, you imagine, it's a bit like a compendium sort of thing, like Tales of the Yawning Portal, Radiant Citadel, etc., etc. It's very much like that. And someone's layered a narrative over the top of it, however good or bad that is. And I really enjoyed some of them. I was like, wow, I actually never really played Eberron. I want to learn more about it. This seems really cool. Mechs ruined in a forest. The artwork, really great. As ever, artwork maps on point. Really good.
So good. There was some really nice variety of maps, I thought. Yeah. We had some of the really lovely ones that we've seen again in like Strixhaven, that sort of like pastely coloured one. Then we've got the more detailed stuff like that. Yeah, I thought they were really good, these maps.
So I was like, I like that mission. And there's really good like conflicts to manifest within it. So in that one particularly, you've got the two different factions, which are the sort of Syrian veterans and the Warforged Pilgrims and then the Warforged Pilgrims are trying to maintain this, like they're part of the old guard. They're trying to save and preserve this Titan-esque thing, Landro, and really cool, like, working off different people, lots of role play opportunities, really interesting. A lot of the time as well in other spaces, you're seemingly having to take things from people who don't want to get rid of them because they're particular and personal to them in order to get them. And so it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting in that sense. Like the Night of Blue Fire is particularly like with the Pelion tree. You've got to take the last fruit, but they'll only give you the fruit if you will do this other quest for them. And that helps you then get access into the area. And so there's lots of steps, and even the Spelljammer one, there's the person that's like pretending to be something they're not, and they're causing someone else to go insane because of that. They're causing like they sort of put so many different like spells, mind altering spells on them that they're sort of overly paranoid. So you've got to deal with sort of like interactions, and then you've got to be floating between these disparate ruined Spelljammers in a really cool setting in the heart of a dead god. I mean, I love them. I loved it. I loved every single one, but Death House and the
Death House was there too. Actually, I was going to quickly talk about the Death House because I felt like everyone else felt like a brand new. Here's the setting you love, but it's a brand new map. It's a brand new things. Barovia. When you visit Barovia for I think it's piece number 4. I want to say off the top of my head, 4th piece of the Seven. And it's like, oh, cool. We'll go to Barovia. Are we going to a new setting? No, we're going to go to the Death House. I think actually they've made a faux pas. I think maybe the reason they've picked the Death House is because everyone remembers it, because you have to go through it, or it's like a rite of passage for Curse of Strahd stuff. And they've changed it a little bit, a tiny little bit. They've got rid of some of the more problematic elements of it, which I thought was I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Just because I've ran it through a couple of times now, so I know the Death House back to front. I think they should have gone somewhere else. I think it should have been either the castle itself, like a new part of the castle that we've not seen, or the Amber Temple.
I was going to say Amber Temple. Yeah,
because it feels like to me, it's like, why would it be here?
My only opposite to that is because you get the Tomb of Wayward Souls, which is the Tomb of Annihilation again. Yes.
But it's a different make of the Tomb of Annihilation, though.
Yeah, but it's also kind of a similar like death trap dungeon. I think the reason why they went with Death House is because the Amber Temple is a death trap dungeon, isn't it? It's just and so at least the Death House is a little bit more like unnerving, and I kind of get it. And also, at least something's going on in the basement. Whilst before, when I last did it, was like, so we've got all to the basement. I'm sure something is happening here, and nothing really was happening here.
No, it's like sort of echoes and reflections of what happened before, and then a Shambly Mountain came out. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I'm much more happier with this Death House because there's actually an actual climax to it instead of an anti-climax.
I would, if I was going to rerun Curse of Strahd, I think as an intro, I would run this version of the Death House and then have other characters coming, like we said before, that intro thing. Because I think, because you have the Durst family actually there, doing this. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, what was here 5 years ago, 10 years ago? So yeah, no, I definitely
totally agree.
I think it's a more interesting one. But then again, I feel like, I'll be honest, it feels a bit lazy because we're just reusing the same map and stuff like that. And I just feel like, it'd be nice to have like, a wing of Strahd. Because again, I think it suffers from the same thing, that Strahd turns up in the last 10 minutes and then doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything. He's like, oh, you're fighting Vecna. Good for you. Cheers. High five from your fan person you love.
It says like, what was it? I read it was like he arrives at the Death House, waits for them, and then you have to make like a DC 20 charisma check to convince to let them leave. I'm like, DC 20 is not that high
unless you've made friends with the vampire hunter lady.
Yeah, true.
And then she'll be like, vouch for you, and you can go out. And you're like, I totally agree. I
think you definitely have to have a fight of some sort with a Strahd, similar to the Acerec character as well, which was an interesting one. I like that in the Wayward Souls tomb bit.
That was a lot more interesting with Revrak, the sort of representation of them. Yeah, and really good. I'm going to say that's what the letdown on this is, the social interactions, which are critical, are just not like, how do we get around this, have just not been answered. Someone hasn't really answered those questions properly, and seems a bit like, oh, Strahd turns up, great, how do they not die? He lets them go. Okay,
yeah,
that'll do.
Tiamat's also here somewhere.
Oh yeah, and you can go in there. What? Okay.
Yeah. Like Lolth is around? Question mark.
Yeah, Lolth's. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it feels like I've written all these cool ideas. Let's do all of them, and then they've just gone, I ain't got time. Fuck it.
We don't have the page count. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I'd rather they stuck to one or two and really investigated those and didn't make this a really weird, like, as it's like greatest hits, but it's a bit like cameos in a movie, and it's like, oh look, it's Brad Pitt, and he dies in 5 seconds, like in Deadpool.
The key thing to me is, like, for example, Lord Soth in the Dragonlance adventure we looked at. Lord Soth is sort of around but not really there, and then the same thing happens here. Like, I really loved the Night of the Blue Fire, this very sci-fi-esque type thing, so cool. And then there was like these orreries, the moon,
so cool. Oh yeah, and all the different crystals.
By the way, this is communicated to Lord Soth, and I'm like, I mean, I get it. We're having these big characters, and it's like, oh, they're all coming together. I feel like this could have been much longer. It could be a much bigger book.
It should be.
And I think what it maybe suffers from is that actually each of these adventures could be its own adventure, but then it's different parties doing it.
How good would that have been?
You go, okay, we've completed this bit. Right, let's hope the other 6 parties of different adventurers sort of, and then next time you play that character, Like it did, one of the suggestions I saw was that you can start a character from scratch, absolutely. Or you could bring a character that you really loved, and maybe they've been brought together across the worlds because of the Wish spell together. So then you form like your own greatest hits party, which I thought that was quite fun. Like I wanted to bring back that, So I like that idea a lot.
You've hit on something I love though, because Warhammer does a thing called and video games. People have been doing this, and it makes them lots of money. Games as narrative that continues. Why don't we have an episodic series in D&D? Why is this not like this is the season, this season's epic adventure? Make it 5 or 6 softback covered episode. This is the Vecna arc, and it's going to be 5 100-page books or 70-page books that are like a grand epic tale. It's going to take 3 years to get through. It's going to build. There's going to be things. You're going to be fighting Lord Soth in this one. You're going to have Lolth in this one, and it's going to be you're going to have a bit of Strahd in this one. And if you're already playing Strahd, you get ripped out of your Strahd environs and sent to this place. Like in this, and maybe you can start it. Maybe I'd use that one as a starting one, because that could be an alternate way to start this campaign. Like, you see you're about to take down Strahd, but then he realizes his realm's being deleted by Vecna, and he's not happy and he's actually willing to help you or something like that. I don't know. They want to make money, right? This is a way to make money. It would be every 6 months there's a new episode or something like that.
Even that first chapter where you go to the Never Death graveyard and then you go to what's it called? The Evernight, which is I was like, oh, excited, and then there's nothing in it.
Out.
You're in and out sort of bit, and I'm like, no, we want at least a 2 or 3 shot in there, like building up. So, like I said, I feel there's lots of good ideas in here, but it feels like again a certain number of pages to fill, and we need to include, obviously, it feels like the people maybe higher up have gone, bring everyone back. Everyone's going to buy this book.
But they could have made so much more money the other way.
I think they could have, And, like, for example, like you do all sorts. Like I said, you've got the sort of sci-fi element of the Night of the Blue Fire, like this amazing sort of, like, building with lights and stuff like that. You got that, you said the Colossus thing, which is a very cool map, this idea of, like, a gigantic sort of, like, robot that is just dead and then trying to find the way out and stuff like that, to Death House, to the Wayward Soul Swing, which I was reading through, I was like, this feels like Tomb of Annihilation, this feels like Tomb of Forest, and it is. But then the story behind that, it makes so much more sense. Like, yeah, of course he's got billions of these, like, trapped dungeons. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't realize that, so I thought that was quite good. And then you've got the casino with the Dragon Queen's Pride as well in Avernus. I was like, that's really interesting. So you go through all these different genres and stuff like that. So that to me is very exciting. But it, again, because we don't have the impetus to hurry the fuck up, we need to find the stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like, I was like, at some point you might have done the Ruins of Colossus and you're like, we're done now. I can't be bothered getting like the other 5 parts of this fucking rod, which again, I do feel like 7 is a lot, which I know it seems so silly.
Yeah.
And I know obviously that's a magical item, it's been in all the things, but I'm just there going like, I can't imagine it turning around to you and going, okay, because like in my own, I always go back to my own campaign of Xeros, we had 3 gates to unseal, and it took us fucking forever to do that. But that was good because we were like, okay, we've only got 1 more left, we'll definitely go find it. If you go, okay, you've got the rod of 7 parts, all right, you found 2 of them, fuck, another 5.
You've got to get the Hand of Vecna, you've got to get the Eye of Vecna, you've got to get the Sword of Cass, done. There's 3.
One thing I was thinking as well is like, what if another way to give that impetus is that there are forces of Vecna that are trying to find the rod as well, and it's just Cass like pushing them to go find it, and then they don't find a piece. What happens then? And having that rivalry, like groups of people as well. Because again, we don't really see the cultists that often now.
Nothing. There's literally, that's it. They're gone.
You need to have them again, the same groups of cultists, and you see the leader who's
and then trying to get them from you as well.
Exactly.
Just having them like steal the things from Critical Role with the rivalry, and just have them. And we even had that in Golden Vault. There was some where you had the agency that was
another rival gang. Yeah, you could use it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that sort of thing because it gives you a motivation, and all the characters look very similar to you. You have that Shaun of the Dead reflection moment, that sort of thing.
I know, taking a bit of a tangent here, but one of the things I thought was really good, a better casino than any of the casinos we've had in any of the other games. In the Golden Vault, I was not as impressed by, again, an Avernus casino. I mean, geez, guys.
It's all right.
AIing your own stuff. But thought it was better because it actually had much more mechanics for each one. You had it was like quests in order to like get the favor of each of the different room owners, and I kind of liked that, and I thought that was a bit more interesting, and I thought the maze one was kind of well put together.
Yeah, I like that one.
I quite liked it, and it looked like you could attack that one from multiple different things. You could go down just a fighting route, you could go down intelligence route, you could go down a more communicative one, or like trying to cheat at games. And I thought that was really fun, and I thought it was much better designed as a space and like as a real place than the other one that was in the Keys from the Golden Vault, which I thought was a little bit underwhelming.
It felt a little bit like Fortune's Wheel as well, because it had the different areas, like you said, but it felt different enough so that if we'd ran the Planescape adventure, they wouldn't be like, oh, this is just a rip-off. Because that's what I wondered with the Tomb of Wayward Souls. I was like, instantly I was like, oh, it is like Tomb of Horrors. But then I read it through and I was like, oh, actually, no, it is different enough that they won't suspect per se. And it's got an interesting ending, as you said, with the different sort of things. So I think there's, like I said, there's lots of interesting bits. And like, But like, I did feel like the Death House for certain felt like the most like ground that we've already trod. Everything else felt different enough there. Where, for example, like you said, the Rune Colossus, that idea of like the Day of Mourning, which I will say I don't know much about Eberron. It is something that again we should look up at some point.
I really am interested now. It sounds really cool. I like the idea of it, and this idea of this sort of desolate landscape and war ravaged realms,
with magic, really cool. And exactly. So I know obviously there are different. Obviously, there's the original Eberron setting for 3.5, and then obviously 5th edition. So there's lots to go on there. So instantly I'm like, oh, I'd love to see that. Then we have the betrayal, which happens off screen, which I really think I think you need to have it together, because like I feel like Cass will be able to stop things happening. Like, he's got the Crown of Lies on, that stops quite a lot of stuff, and is able to take the rod and all that sort of thing, and then go to a big battlefield on Pandemonium, which sounds great. I love the idea of the fight, but it sounds like a lot of shit. Like, and again, I know we said this, I do love high level stuff, but there's a lot of combat stuff, obviously, because it's D&D high level. But I was like, by the end, I was like, oh my god, I don't think people will survive this. They have to be super clever and super like sneak past things and like different ways of doing stuff. And that big battlefield, the war, there was a lot of different demons I had not encountered before, like these sort of wolf spider demons and stuff like that, which look horrendous. And I like the idea of being able to do these fights and stuff like that, but I was like, god, this is going to be super tricky.
I like how it looks like Dover.
Yes, no, it does, doesn't it? On the beaches, like people are fighting and stuff like that.
I like it as a visual, like this kind of epic finale. You've got this huge war going on. The only thing is, it's that disconnect, because you've just not been engaged. You've not been able to be engaged with it until you hit this point. You're like, there's a war raging. You're like, okay, of course.
Oh shit! Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, but it's not. There's no lead up to it. You just don't feel like that's. You'd have to try and remind your characters, if you haven't read it all the way through before you play it, you need to be like, there's a war raging. You need to sort of say this as people fight. That you need to get, because you don't interact with that at all, as we said.
Yeah, whole worlds are winking out of existence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that needs to be sort of put to people, I think, more so that I don't know.
I wonder if, again, going back a little bit, you were saying with the Spelljammer settings, that one with the crash, which again, such a cool idea, this idea of this big Spelljammer like crashing into the body of a dead god. I think that's where you'd probably see, and you look out and you see these stars starting to wink out slowly from existence. That maybe, again, a hint to think about it. You had this fight with, again, I don't know if you'd know who Mishka was at all, and like terrifying if you did. And who's this book aimed at, right? Is it aimed at new people, or is it aimed at experienced veterans of D&D who've read the books and played? I feel like we don't tread necessarily new stuff, because nothing happens, and maybe nothing can happen, because as soon as this demon is released, that's kind of it. You're screwed,
Yeah, it is. But then if they did get released, you're about to fight Vecna, so you can fight Miska, right? And you've got Lolth. You could have them escape and then have Lolth start fighting them. You know what I mean? They instantly teleport, and then you're just like in and amongst that battle, as in just starts, because they would be dispatched to sort of stop them. I don't know. It just feels very.
Because Miska is challenge rating 24. Vecna is 26. Cass is 23. Lolth doesn't have a stat block, understandably, because she's a demon.
Yeah, she's a god. So like that's what I mean. So Miska comes out, Lolth just turns up and eats him.
Yeah, they fight off screen. They take that big fight away, and then it's Cass versus you versus Vecna.
Yeah,
or Cass versus Tasha and
Astorial. Yeah,
Astorial.
Illustrial. Sorry, Illustrial. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. Yeah, Silverhand. Yeah, Silverhand. They fight the remaining wizards too, and then maybe Mordenkainen turns up eventually. Would you play this as a player? Read it. Obviously, now we've read it through, so obviously you know. So, would you be excited to play in this adventure? No,
not at all. Honestly, and I feel really bad saying it. I feel, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on here who've worked really hard and made really good content, like made a really good piece of work in the smaller little things. I just think the overarching story doesn't grab me. At all. I don't feel engaged with it, and because of the reasons I've said. However, would I steal some of these individual things?
Oh yeah,
100%. Like you've said, Death House. If I was going to run Strahd, I would use that Death House over this version, because there's something actually happening in there, and I'd have Strahd turn up, but I'd make that a bit more interesting. I would use these, particularly like the Spelljammer one. I think is a great Spelljammer.
I love the Spelljammer one.
I really loved that. I would use that in many of the games. The Ruined Colossus again. Yeah, a lot of them. If I was going to be in any of those locations, I would love to run them. I think as one-shots, they're great little one-shots that you could just play with people just for fun.
Even the Web's Edge, which is the Underdark one, which is kind of hidden in the chapter 2, because obviously you meet the wizards free. That's a really cool. You have a spider dragon, which is fucking terrifying. That image. Yeah. But no, thank you.
Exactly. And I think you could utilize this for any reason to get the Rod of Seven Parts, which could be like, I'm in Sigil. All the portals are broken because Athar has come back and is trying to take the portals from the Lady of Pain. The Lady of Pain has charged you to go get the Rod of Seven Parts, and that's how she's going to fix stab it in the heart of whatever.
Trap that particular god. Yeah,
exactly.
Because that's what it is. It's the whole key is to be able to unlock and relock in.
Exactly, gods. Yeah, I'd be like, I'd use it for that, and you go back, and that would be a much more, and I'd use exactly the same thing. Because then you're coming back to Sigil, and every time you're seeing Sigil being worse and being ravaged, and it kind of links, and I think as a Planescape adventure, this is your Planescape adventure. Yeah. That's what it is.
My final sort of little thing is that obviously with all these new adventures and supplements and all that sort of thing, they had here's why you should play this adventure, because it's got a quirky mechanic and stuff like that. So it has these secrets. We talked about it a little bit last time, because obviously Vecna is the god of secrets, which I didn't realise, which again, poor me. And in most chapters, a lot of the NPCs have a secret that if you discover, you can obviously spend at some point to do a very powerful thing. Like for the next minute, you have advantage on every skill check and every attack. Great. My issue, the secrets aren't good enough.
A lot of them are like, that's the secret?
Yeah,
the dog knows? Are you joking?
And it's like, and it always says, no matter what the party's reaction is, it still counts as a secret.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
you're like, mate,
off.
You had to try. You're like, I know mine. It's a shit one, but when the last ones was like, they know that Neverember doesn't have a legitimate right to the crown. That's a good, tasty bit of goss.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously, again, as a player, I might not know that.
The dog feels a bit bad because it thought the other guy was a bit dodgy.
Yeah,
and didn't
in the
say
Spelljammer one. Yeah,
you're like, I don't know if that's a secret. That's just like...
A lot of the stuff is like, I did know about this before going in, but I didn't tell anyone because I felt really bad.
Much of them are exactly that. They're literally 4 or 5 of them, which are like, I felt dodgy about someone and didn't say anything. Which, fine, but it's not like...
It's not a secret.
Like a grand, world-shattering secret. Like, I know this Spelljammer holds the key to an abyssal layer where there is... a horde of demons waiting to be released or something like that. And, that's the secret.
I've got a few of them here. So, for example, this is one from Eberron, the Eberron bit. So, Mercy never truly searched for their best friend since the two of them were separated after the day of mourning. That's not a secret.
Not a secret. That's just, I'm feeling a bit bad about something.
Caliph lost the wealth that could have prevented the current financial strain after she and her allies are under. Okay, did she lose it because she gambled? Did she, I'm like, come on, give me secrets.
Yeah, it just feels like, I know, and make them world-ending secrets, not just little personal ones. You want ones that are just I don't know, something. You just want something who caused the war or something like that. Or
Rerak resents his imprisonment in the Tomb of Wayward Souls and never wanted to enact Asarak's will there. And you're like,
that's not even a secret. He says it.
It says it.
Exactly. So it's not if it was more Rerak is actually Azarak, or I don't know, something. Yeah, they could be better.
I will admit, I think it would be harder, but I would absolutely rewrite quite a lot of these.
Morally Grey would be you know that Rerak has got a copy of the Book of
Vile Darkness or something.
Vile Darkness has got a copy of the Book of Vile Darkness, which, if not retrieved within the next 24 hours after their death or something like that, then it will go to Vecna. That's the secret where you're like, I could spend that secret, or I could go get the Book of Vile Darkness. It's kind of something where it's I've got to give up something myself as a player, in order to release that secret. Because you giving up that secret is well, that's not affected me or the party by saying they didn't tell their friend anything.
Honestly, I would have these, but I would tell the players, I need you to come up with 5 secrets that your character has, and you can use them. For you, because that will be really, I think, because and obviously check them with the GMs to make sure that they're not, they don't go on any lines of veils or anything like that. Yeah. But they have that in the back pocket so that they go, wait, I can give you a secret and then say, because at the end you can use these secrets in the ritual at the end, which again I really like that as a mechanic. But I feel like you get all these options. Oh, I'm just going to fucking spend them and get advantage on whatever, like even just to do the Baldur's Gate of like keep going until we unlock the door. It's like I just wish there was more made of it, and maybe it's, I don't know. It feels like they've struggled, and I think. Maybe it's because they've got too many of them.
That's what it feels like. The whole book feels like is that they struggled a bit.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe in my head I'd be like, you only get one secret per chapter, and if you miss it, that's fine. Like I feel like there's too many of them, and like obviously the one at the end is like, oh, Cass knows where Vecna is, and I was like, okay, that's fine, I guess, to give you a freebie. It's one of those things where I'm like, this is a really cool idea, and it totally is thematic and stuff. But I was like, what the? Yeah, I really, as a player, be like, I'm sorry, don't feel bad about. Like not searching for your friend, or you like be suspicious of. Milana is like, I was suspicious of Mordecai from the moment that he arrived, but I didn't say anything to Aluriel or Tasha or any of the characters. I think it's a shame. I wish there was more to it because I really like the mechanic. I think it's really thematic, and maybe you spending it, you lose a bit of yourself because obviously that's power to Vecna. So I'm just like, I really wish that would have been. I don't know. It feels like you could do the adventure without it. And that's the thing that sucks for me, because I love the idea of it. I love anything like that. Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that you have all these cool like spider fiends as well. Like I know I mentioned it before.
Spider dragon, love
spider dragon, spider fiends, where it's like part wolf, part spider. Like there's a lot of really cool. And the Citadel spider, I don't know if you saw that. Like this huge. Fuck off, massive spider was like moves across the battlefield and stuff, and I think there's some really cool encounters and fights here. Yeah,
it's a great resource. Like Star Anglers, awesome. Spider Fiends, awesome. All of these things, great. The Sorrow Sworn.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's such a small bit right at the beginning, like when you're trying to get back to Neverwinter, but it's actually quite intense, and I like that. That's the emotion of like the tomb that you go to, and it's like, oh, they're all the loneliness, all that sort of thing, and then the matriarch is there. I'm like, that beautiful, love that sort of stuff. That's really interesting, and that will have an effect on the players afterwards.
And really good art for all of these things, freaky things. Loving all the art. Like I think
really worked hard on it for the art.
They've done. Artists done a great job. That's the thing. It's like I feel this has been the way for D&D things releases, is that it's like 50% A star, 50% D minus, like, it's or like C minus, I guess, as being fair. It's just average. It's very average stuff. If not, sometimes kind of like you're meant to be the best. I don't know what I mean. This is the irony of it. Like the indie scene is so good, and the indie scene has got some really talented, intelligent people and making some incredible things. And we are absolutely spoiled rotten by people like Soul Muppet coming out and giving a free away Paint the Town Red, for example.
Yeah.
And then you've got Wizards of the Coast requesting you to give them a very sizable amount of money. And this is from a company that has extortionate amounts of money themselves, and can hire the best of the best in the business. And you get even 50% of it being average. It's worrying. And it's kind of like, why am I investing in this company?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're not giving back. There's good work here. And as you said, it's probably down to page count and up above saying, do this, do that.
I think, because it feels like recently there's been more collabs with like, Dead by Daylight, Lego, Minecraft, and it's like there's a lot of push on that, which I get. Like, trust me, as someone who has the Lego set next to her, I get it. I absolutely get it. But what keeps me is creating stories and stuff. Yeah. And I think the problem is that they're so busy. Like, we need to pump out adventures. We're having so many books this year. We've got this. We've got the Infinite Staircase coming out. We've got the free. But
they're all rehashes.
Yeah, they're all rehashes as well. But like, there's stuff coming out, but it's coming out at such a rate that I mean, I've only just managed to read the Vecna stuff. There's some books here that I'm never going to play. None of these adventures I'm going to play, and it kind of sucks. I want to be able to. I would say as well that, in terms of other sources that have come up, obviously D&D Beyond, we've had Flea Mortals and the Where Evil Lies from, which are all like cool adventures for third-party content now on D&D Beyond. And again, so if you're not sure about this adventure per se, I totally understand why. But if you want to know about more story hooks or monsters, I mean, supporting them
just feels like there's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff. But I'm just not feeling like I just feel that Dragonlance failed for me on some fundamental story issues. like, I think the overarching story issues is whoever's running the overall arching stories for games hasn't really got it for me recently. I'm just looking at what was the last ones, but like,
it feels like those books were like as the beginning of like, we're going to start a whole series of books.
And the same with the Planescape adventure. We had the same thing. The overarching thing kind of felt a bit weird. Like, why is she?
Why is she doing this? Like,
why is she doing this? Yeah, it was so. It just feels like the whole like antagonists need to have, like, what is their what's the word? Not impetus is the word, but there's another word for it. Like, what is their motivation?
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
motivation. The person who's coming up with the motivation of this is just like, it doesn't make, none of them have in the last 3 adventures have not made sense for me, and so that's what I'm feeling at the moment.
Again, I know we always mention the Curse of Strahd, but that's why Strahd is very good, because Strahd turns up. They are complex.
30 odd years old, though, that story.
It is. But that's what I'm saying. Like, again, I always say this every time you go, D&D live actual play. It's always Strahd or a version of Strahd. Like, people love that story because the villain is interesting.
I think Dragon Heist is the last one I can think of where it's like, there's some decent actual impetuses here. There's money on the table. This is why people are doing it. And 4 different characters that all had equally interesting reasons for why they're doing this and why they would interface with the party. Yeah. And I'm finding this one, I'm just like, okay, I guess this seems logical, but why are they not doing it themselves? And Dragon Queen was like, why would you go that way when you would definitely go the other way? And in the Planescape, it's like, why is she helping them end her, like, find out her secret? It doesn't make any sense. Like, anyway.
I think ultimately, like, I've really enjoyed, like you said, the little sort of mini elements of like, I would 100% be like, okay, we're going, you've been sucked out of time, you got to do this now. Like, I feel if anything, this is like a level 1 to 20 campaign where you do other adventures in between, like mini hop-off points,
100%. Yeah,
I would definitely, in terms of what I would change, Vecna would not pop up every so often, but definitely would be in contact. Maybe there's a betrayer within the party itself who is working for Vecna, who is a cultist of Vecna. I would have that option available to them, rewrite the secrets, and like give them a chance to explore stuff. I know we've only just done like a brief sort of whistle-stop tour, but like Spelljammer 1, like you said, there's a betrayer there who's pretending to be something. I'm not going to spoil that per se, because I think that's I love that
really
bit.
Yeah.
And then the Colossus, that idea of like you said, the druids and stuff, like, oh well, the important thing you need to use to help you find the next piece, it's how you interact with people. And I like the granularness of that, because I think that's something as a GM I would love. But the big fight at the end, like where you finally get to Vecna, and it is a little bit of a puzzle, and then it's going to be hard. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know if I'll ever would run something like that, because it's so difficult. So again, it feels like a good first draft, and then maybe there will be more, like you said before, like the Dragon Heist, like expansions of like, here's other suggestions for other openers, other ways to end it. We always have to mention Doom Forgotten Realms, because
do that. Just play that. Just play Doom Forgotten Realms. You want to do a Vecna arc, play Doom Forgotten Realms. It's better.
Because obviously we spoke to one of the writers for that as well, and this the idea of like, what if you failed every single adventure? What happens? Matthew Whitby, Doom Forgotten Realms, Sword Coast Gazetteer. Go check it out, because we really enjoyed. I'll put a link in the show notes as well, because it was such a good book. We really enjoyed it when we looked through as well.
Well. That's that one. That's been an interesting one.
Save the world again.
Save the world again for another day.
Hamza, thank you so much for voicing your thoughts against Vecna. Hopefully, it's a secret I will use again against you at some point, and I'll get advantage on stuff. What are you up to? Any quick plugs you want to do before we sign off?
Adventures in Mordheim is happening with Fiona. It might have finished by the time this comes out, but it will be coming to podcasts at a place near you. So hopefully, by the time this comes out, there'll be links in the show notes for that, or you can watch our beautiful faces at the other links. Other than that, I'm doing some other weekly podcasting stuff with our Chaos Engine with Chris, talking about D&D, Warhammer and TTRPGs. And if you want to hear me ranting about AI for 45 minutes, you can listen to that episode. And that's about it, really. But what about yourself, Fiona?
Me?
What, where, when, how, why?
Yes, why indeed. Hello, my name is Fiona. That's the sort of what and who. when? Who knows? Who knows? I'm in a different country now, so times are weird. I'm so glad you asked. I do What Am I Rolling, which is a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPG systems. I mean, not currently, because there's a lot of interviews that have come out because it's much easier to edit when you're on the go. But we've got a few others coming out. I'm in the middle, at time of recording a Savage World series about zombies, which is done by the lovely Zach from Realms, and that's been very fun and really good. It's a very interesting system. It's very, again, I'm glad I'm not running it. I'll say that off the top, but I think really interesting to see those things. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about different RPGs, like obviously we've discussed a couple here on DM's Book Club, go check that out. Because again, it's just ways to how do we create different stories that use different mechanics that aren't necessarily tied to the D&D 5th edition or D20 system. Other than that, I've been doing some streams as well, the Too Long Didn't Read tabletop RPG streams, whereby I will pick a book and I'll read through the majority of it within an hour, 2 hours on stream. Just a way to get used to reading aloud, because that's the kind of stuff you need for voiceover stuff, but also learning about mechanics, what we like, what we think, if anything, could be improved, and anything about accessibility, because a lot of this stuff we're reading online, they're not accessible, which is really wild, because you kind of need that for stuff like that. But yeah, come check those out. I usually do streams of that on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays, roughly about 5 p.m. BST, so 11 a.m. Central Time. Those are the times I'm sort of going up to there. So yeah,
they're really good. I've really been enjoying them. There's some really good ones in there. So.
Thank you. I'll send you your 20 quid after this episode.
I'll send you my PayPal. I think that's it then, is it? There's nothing else left to say, but we'll see you on the flip side.